2, 1, blast off!
Good morning and welcome to our next Challenger Connection. I'm Commander Jennifer.
And I'm Sydney.
And today we are going to make some naked eggs. So we are going to take some eggs and take off their shells, hopefully. And we're going to do that through a process called osmosis. Have you ever heard of that before? Yes. So Sydney's probably done that in some of her classes, I bet. So we have been working on this experiment for the past several days. This experiment's going to take you a few days to complete. And the materials you're going to need, obviously if you're doing naked eggs, you're going to need some eggs. You'll just need 2 of those. You'll need some cups, so 2 cups per egg. You're going to need some vinegar, some corn syrup, and water. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so your first step is to add 1 egg to each cup. Make sure that you are careful when you're putting it in the cup that you don't bust the shell. We want that shell completely intact. Once you have your eggs in your cups, next thing you need to do is you need to take your vinegar. And you're going to pour enough vinegar in your cup to cover your eggs. So pour into each cup so that it covers up your eggs. Got 1 done. Now do you notice how that egg's floating a little? Its density is less than that vinegar's density. It's wanting to float. Now the hard part. Have some patience and let this sit for at least 24 hours. Do you see the bubbles? Vinegar has acetic acid in it, which is reacting with the calcium carbonate in the eggshell. This is creating a chemical reaction giving off carbon dioxide, which you are seeing here in the bubbles. Eventually, the vinegar is going to dissolve the eggshell, leaving the membrane. We've had the eggs in vinegar for a little over 24 hours now. So what we're going to do is we are going to very carefully pour the vinegar off of the egg. You could try to use a spoon or something to get it out with, but it's pretty fragile right now, so we don't want to take a chance on busting our egg because remember, it is a raw egg. So, got this bowl here, so we're going to try to pour off the vinegar into this bowl right here. And if you see the top of that, it looks pretty yucky where that's all bubbled up and some of the shell has come off. All right, so let's see if we can pour it in here. There we go. And you can see what's left of the shell. It's really not even really a shell at all anymore. It just rubs right off of there. Ugh. And what we're left with holding our egg together is actually 2 very thin membranes. They're pretty fragile. It feels kind of rubbery. So all that just kind of wipes off. So let's compare what this looks like to an egg that hasn't been sitting in the vinegar. So Sydney, can you hand me one of those brown eggs over there? A towel's there to wipe your hands on if you want. So, alright, so we've got this egg, which has been in the vinegar. And we're comparing it to this egg, which has obviously not been in the vinegar. You notice how it's bigger? It's gotten bigger. And obviously it's a lot softer. That membrane's just what's holding it together. So, we're ready for the next part of our experiment. Now, we're gonna take our 2 eggs and put them back in our cup. Very carefully. Again, we don't wanna bust our egg. I've got mine there and Sydney's gonna put hers in her cup. Very carefully. And now, to my cup, I'm gonna add water. So instead of vinegar, now I'm gonna add water. And Sydney is actually gonna add some corn syrup. And just like we did with the vinegar, you want it to cover your egg. So I'm not sure if I have quite enough in that bottle of corn syrup, so if I don't, I'll have to add some other corn syrup that we have, which is the dark brown corn syrup, so we'll see. So go ahead and put that carefully in there. I'm gonna tilt mine to this side a little so I don't put it right on the egg. Notice the corn syrup's definitely thicker. Alright, so now we've got our corn syrup and our water. And again, we're going to let that sit for about 24 hours. Come back and see what happens. Alright, so it's been over 24 hours, not quite 48 hours probably, but pretty close. And we've got our egg in the corn syrup. And again, I had a spoon in there just to hold it down under the corn syrup because its density was less than the corn syrup, so it wanted to float. And then the egg on Sydney's side is the egg and water. So I'm gonna let Sydney pour that one out first into the bowl, the egg with the water, just like we did before. She's gonna try to catch it. It's probably fairly fragile. Look at that. Look how big that is. So comparing it to this normal egg, look how big that is. So do you think the one in the corn syrup is gonna be quite as big? So let's put that one up there, Sydney. Yeah, it does. It's kind of like a water balloon at this point because it has a lot of water in it. Now, I want you to pay attention to this corn syrup when I pour it out. So think about the consistency of corn syrup. It's usually pretty thick, right? And you probably noticed when Sydney was pouring it on there, it was really thick. Do you think it's gonna still be like that? I don't know, let's see. It's not nearly as thick as it was before. Why do you think that is? Yeah, because some of the water actually came out of the egg and went into the corn syrup. Oh, wow, yeah. So look at that. Look at our egg now. I can feel the yolk. So right here in my hand, this is the yolk. And here's some other liquid here. But definitely very wrinkly, very smushed up. Doesn't have much liquid left in it at all. It's extremely fragile. The membranes are still intact on both eggs, but they're probably really fragile. Just like before, so look at that. So comparing again, regular egg here compared to those two eggs. This one still has its shell. These are just the membranes left. This one was sitting in water. That was in corn syrup. Notice this one. Definitely, like Sydney said, definitely feels like a water balloon. Feels just like a water balloon. Very, very tight, the membrane is. This one obviously, definitely not tight. Very, very wrinkledy. And you can feel that yolk right there. You can feel it. So what's going on is a process called osmosis. You have the semi-permeable membrane of the egg, which means it lets some molecules pass through it, but not all. And then you have all of these water molecules. The water molecules want to move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. So they're going to pass through that membrane into the inside of the egg where there's a lower concentration to try to equalize the water molecules outside of the egg to the water molecules inside of the egg. Now let's look at our egg in the corn syrup. The corn syrup has very little water and a lot of sugars in it. The sugar molecules are too big to pass through the membrane. And there is a lot of water still inside of our egg from the vinegar. So now that there's higher concentration inside of the egg, those water molecules want to go to lower areas of concentration, which is now outside of the egg, which is going to take water out of the egg and put it into the corn syrup. So what do you think would happen if we put this egg in water?
It'd suck up the water.
You think it would? Well, let's make it a little fun so we can see how much of the water it is absorbing back into it. So let's color this water. Let's put some food coloring in it. Stir that up a little. Okay, so we have our water with the food coloring. So we are going to try to carefully put this egg, without busting the membrane, into this water. And I'm probably going to put this in the refrigerator, just in case our egg, I don't know how long this egg will last without going bad sitting out, so we'll probably put it in the refrigerator, but we're going to leave it about 24 hours, probably about as long as we've left the vinegar and the water and the corn syrup. And then we'll come back and see what happens to it. Alright, so we have had our corn syrup egg back in the water for over 24 hours now. We actually put it in the refrigerator just in case we didn't want it to go bad. So, what do you think is going to happen when we pour the water off this time?
It'll be
Holding in. So you think that it's going to have some water going back in. All right, you want to pour it out? Remember, we put some green food coloring in it. Oh, wow. And it looks about like the egg that we just did before in the water, with a big major difference. What's different now?
It's green.
It's green. So let's see, put it up here on the plate there. So it's green. Does it feel like a water balloon again like the other one did?
Yes.
Feel about the same? Looks about the same. So I wonder if we were to bust this egg, do you think what's inside that egg is green? Or do you think it's just that membrane on the outside that's green?
Probably the inside.
You think the inside? I don't know. Should we find out? Okay, so we've got our green egg inside the bowl. So remember, we were wondering if it was just the membrane that was green or if some of the liquid inside was actually green. So Sydney's got a toothpick and she's gonna poke it and hopefully bust the membrane and see what happens. Oh! Oh, it's coming out for sure. Can you tell?
What? Oh, the yolk.
Oh, do you feel the yolk again?
About to come out.
So definitely a lot of that water inside there was green. Do you see that? Kind of in the shadow here, I think. Definitely the membrane was very, very green. And then a lot of the liquid inside was green too. But the yolk has its own little membrane on it. Didn't go through it. It's still yellow. Alright, so that concludes our egg experiment video. So our first step was we added our eggs to the vinegar, and the acetic acid in the vinegar reacted with the calcium carbonate in the eggshell and it dissolved the eggshell. So then we put one of the eggs in water. We put the second egg in corn syrup. The one we put in the water got maybe even a little bit bigger because that semi-permeable membrane lets some of the water come in. But we found out the corn syrup had molecules in it, those sugar molecules that were a little bit too big. So those sugar molecules weren't passing through that membrane, but some of the water molecules were coming back out of it. And then we put it in the green water, and what happened to it then? Turned green and it filled back out. So hopefully you try some of these experiments at home. share those with us in the comments. Let us know how yours turned out, and don't forget to submit your astronaut question. If you've always wanted to ask an astronaut a question, go to our Facebook page, find that form, and submit a question to Colonel Terry Wilcutt, and maybe yours will be chosen and you can participate in our special question and answer session. I'm Commander Jennifer.
And I'm Sydney.
Over and out. One thing we were a little curious about, the one that we had in the water, since we said it felt like a water balloon, we wondered if it would bounce any. So we're going to try it. Oh yeah. It does. Alright, another side experiment we kind of thought about. Wonder how high we could drop it and it would bounce, or if it would bust. This is the water with the egg with the water. Alright.
It didn't really bounce.
No, it didn't bounce too much. But it didn't bust. Go a little higher. Oh, there it did. And you can see, oh yeah, look, there's the membrane. And remember, it's got 2 of those membranes. And there's the yolk. Definitely lots of water in there. Lots and lots of water.